Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is the North Affair podcast, Conversations Without Barriers. I am your host, Doug from Ontario, Canada. I hope everybody's having a good week out there. Today is Thursday, the 15th of January. And here in Ontario, we are digging ourselves out of a snowstorm. The first significant amount of snow for 2026. Happy winter to you. Now, before I begin the segment, people like to get away over the winter months. You like to go to warm climates. And of course, there's people who enjoy the winter months and they like to travel to other countries to go skiing, to enjoy the winter outdoor activities that even Canada, has to offer. If you're frustrated with the political chaos south of the border, if you're tired of the noise, the threats, and the rhetoric, come visit Canada. Come see what Canada has to offer. Boycott the United States and choose a country that still believes in stability, decency, and the rule of law. Come see Canada and all it has to offer. Hope you do, and I hope you enjoy your stay. Now let's get into it. We're going to walk through a situation that's getting louder, more complicated, and more dangerous by the week. NATO forces have increased their presence in and around Greenland. NORAD is watching the Arctic more closely than ever. And the rhetoric coming out of Washington keeps shifting. National security, economic security, strategic competition. But here's the truth. Stacking arguments doesn't create rights. Stacking arguments doesn't override sovereignty or the rule of law. A stacking argument doesn't change the law. So let's walk through this with clarity, calmly, and with the facts in front of us. NATO's presence in Greenland. Let's start with what's actually happening on the ground. NATO has increased its presence in Greenland not to provoke, not to escalate, but to stabilize. Greenland is part of the Kingdom of Denmark. Denmark is a founding member of NATO. And when tensions rise, whether from rhetoric, pressure, or geopolitical noise, NATO reinforces the territory of its members. That's the alliance doing exactly what it was built to do. This is not a buildup of conflict, it's a signal. Greenland is NATO territory. Its sovereignty is up to the negotiations, and the alliance stands behind Denmark. That's the baseline. NORAD and the Arctic defense. Now let's talk about the other major player in Arctic security, and this is NORAD. NORAD is a North American Aerospace Defense Command. It's a binational Canada and the United States Command, created in 1958. Its job is simple and enormous: detect threats, track threats, defend North America from air, land, and sea, and through the Arctic. NORAD monitors Russian bomber flights, missile launches, polar ice routes, anything approaching the continent from the north. And here's the key point: NORAD already covers the northern theater picture. NATO already covers Greenland's territorial defense. There's no security gap that requires territorial acquisition. There is no emergency that requires buying or annexing Greenland. There is no scenario where sovereignty becomes optional. So when someone claims Russia or China might take Greenland, NORAD and NATO both say the same thing. No, that's not happening. The threat is just rhetoric and not real. The national security claim. Let's look at the first justification being pushed: national security. By Trump. We've heard the warnings: Russia might move into Greenland, China might occupy Greenland, foreign powers might seize the Arctic. But here's the reality: NATO intelligence says no, Danish intelligence says no, NORAD says no, Canada's Arctic Command says no. There is no evidence of any Russian or Chinese plan to occupy Greenland. So why raise the alarm? Because if you frame Greenland as at risk, you can argue that someone needs to protect it. But NATO already protects it. NORAD already monitors the Arctic. The United States already has a military base in Greenland. If this were truly about national security, that solution already exists. NATO and NORAD solves that problem. The economic security claim. Donald Trump says we need it for economic security. Now let's move to the second justification: the economic security. This is where the real weight sits. Greenland has rare earth minerals, the kind the world fights over. It has uranium, nickel, cobalt, titanium. It sits on future Arctic shipping lanes that could reshape global trade. These are real, tangible, strategic assets. But economic desire is not a legal pathway. It's a motive, not a right. If economic interest justified territorial acquisition, the world map would be withdrawn every decade. International law doesn't work that way. NATO doesn't work that way. NORAD doesn't work that way. Sovereignty doesn't work that way. Why the arguments keep shifting? Yes, it is, buddy. Redneck Rambler, you haven't been on here for a while, and thanks for coming back. Yeah, it was the Truckers Podcast. You remember the Truckers Podcast, FYI. So I just decided that we'll just call it the North Affair. North being Canada, fair being the base. Yeah, I thought you recognized the voice. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, but thanks for coming back and stuff like that and listening. Yeah, so I just thought I would change up the logo. I would change up the name of the podcast and stuff like that because when I was talking, the Truckers podcast, after a while I've got thinking, well, maybe people are just thinking that it's about trucking, and I have very, very few shows, on the on the industry, and that's not my focus. Recently, if you have been able to have an opportunity to listen to some of my episodes, stuff like that, it's about homelessness and housing. Some political, well, that's political, obviously, here in Canada, throughout every province and stuff like that, but political on the world stage. What's happening on the ground right now in real time in Greenland with NATO countries um, moving military into that region on the ground, air, and sea. Well, what I'm talking about today is what we're talking about basically, um, with Greenland, NATO, NORAD, in the myth of stacked arguments. So, Trump has stacked arguments about why he wants to, acquire or take over Greenland and how they are blocked in every single direction. So getting back to the economic security claim, which Donald Trump says we need it for economic security. So both the rare earth minerals with the uranium, nickel, cobalt, titanium. But economic desire is not a legal pathway. It's a motive, not a right. If economic interests justified territorial acquisition, the world map would be withdrawn every decade. And international law doesn't work that way. And why the arguments keep shifting? So why do the justifiers keeps changing every day? He's Donald Trump comes up with some new reason, why he needs to take over Greenland. Because when one argument doesn't land, another one is ruled out. National security, economic security, strategic competition, mineral independence, Arctic dominance. It's a stacking strategy. Pile on enough reasons and hope one of them sticks. But here's the forensic truth. If the core claim is invalid, which was security reasons, adding more claims doesn't make it valid. It's like trying to build a house on sand. More bricks don't fix the foundation. Now, let's get into the part that doesn't bend, and that's the law, under international law. Domestic legislation stops at the border. See, there's a senator Republican from Florida wants to introduce a bill into the House saying that it gives the president authority to annex Greenland. There is no bill that could be put forward that would even be legal basis to annex Greenland. That'd be like putting a bill forward to the House or the Senate to annex Canada. It stops at the border. Sovereignty cannot be taken. Territory can only change hands by mutual agreement. NATO cannot seize or transfer land. NORAD cannot be used for territorial acquisition. NATO cannot pressure a member to give up territory. Denmark said no. Greenland said no. The European Union said no. NATO said no. And at the end of the legal conversation, no national security claim changes that. No economic security claim changes that. No congressional bill changes that. Stacking arguments doesn't override sovereignty. The NATO's increased presence in Greenland is a stabilizing move. So Donald Trump says we need to stabilize the region. We need to protect the region. He's saying he wants to do it the United States solely on its own. But we know that's not why that the reason that he is claiming. We know about the critical minerals that are beneath the surface of the frozen Arctic. You know, I did another show on this the other day too, and I think it was Porcupine Podcast guy on here and stuff like that. And he said to me, he says, well, why wouldn't you want, Greenland, next door, like making Greenland the United States next door to Canada? Well, Canada and the United States are joined at the hip. We're like Siamese twins. We're on the North American continent. I already have the United States as a neighbor. Why the hell would I want the United States or Greenland being called the United States? Why the hell would I want that? Then have to put up with more rhetoric and bullshit from the United States. We're already attached at the hip. So the NATO increased presence, and this is happening in real time. I think it's 6 or 7. So 6 or 7 is 6 or 7 NATO countries now have moved military personnel into Greenland. And what's happening with Alberta? Well, I don't know. They're working on a pipeline that they want to move to the West Coast through British Columbia. All seems quiet on that. I'm not understanding the question. I mean, what particular thing you want to know about Alberta? waiting to separate. Well, it's not the first time that a province, is trying to put a referendum together to, separate because, they're acting like Donald Trump, right? Quebec had tried the same thing, put together a referendum and vote on separation. It failed miserably. And it's the same thing, like the same rhetoric, you know, you get people upset, with the government. You saw this back, when they had the trucker convoy, right, going to Ottawa, as if these truckers were superheroes, wearing their trucker hats and their trucker capes, like Superman, truckers to the rescue. These far right radicals, who are not happy, with the federal government. I mean, not every, even not everybody is. I mean, sometimes we don't like the policies and stuff like that. And we say, well, we don't like the policies, but, it's just a certain a group amount, it's just a certain group of people. The majority of Albertans, the indigenous people of Alberta, um, they don't want to separate. Well, yeah, figure out the indigenous people would have the first dibs on wanting their national land back. Well, it's not, you know, uh, I don't know, shared land. I mean, you can go all the way back to colonialism. Back in the mid 1800s. When colonialism started to take place here in Canada with the residential schools, you know, taking children from their homes and placing them all over the country, you know. um, and the indigenous people do have a say um, in Alberta. They have a say all over the country. They have the say. They have the say in Parliament. When Quebec held their referendum, Canada, the people of Canada, spoke loud and clear. And the majority of people in Quebec, see separatists, that are trying to drive that train, and they just keep driving that train into a wall. And then you had the premier of Alberta, her rhetoric, that comes out, and stuff like that too. I mean, sometimes she's no help. She plays both sides. They, back in just last year, Mark Carney, the Prime Minister of Canada, and Danielle Smith, the Premier of Alberta, they had a meeting. They're talking about the pipeline. She was all happy about it. You know, um, she held a town hall meeting, and she was talking how things are looking better between Alberta and the federal government, and she got her ass booed off. And then she starts her rhetoric, and then how up she at times how upset she is with the federal government, and she gets cheered. She's a player. She plays both sides. And I just say, I say to people, I said, I mean, look at, I mean, you don't like it here in Canada. Do you think the grass is greener on the other side, or do you think you can, just be independent from Canada, and I don't know what, be your own country? It's just like, whatever. If you think the grass is greener on the other side, well, then go have a gander. So you have a cousin that is Canadian, living in Nova Scotia. Well, that's great. I haven't been to Nova Scotia. I would like to go to Nova Scotia. s- you know, um, See the East Coast, Newfoundland and Labrador. But getting back to what's taking place um, with Greenland, and I did note the other day too. Um, the Ellesmere uh, part of Greenland. It's the narrowest strait between Greenland and Canada that only separates us by about 15 miles. Greenland was has been always protected, by NORAD and by the United Nations, NATO. It's absolutely appalling. You know, um, the other day. Well, not just the other day, and even like last week. Donald Trump is like, we can do it the easy way or we can do it the hard way. What kind of rhetoric bullshit is that? We can do it the easy way or we can do it the hard way. I don't think I need to explain that and what that is referenced to. I mean, you can't buy Greenland. It's not for sale. And anybody in their right mind knows that, when Trump talks about national security, we need it for national security. We need it for economic security. Well, the economic security part is about the precious minerals under the ice. It's not about Russia or China. There's no Russia or Chinese ships circling Greenland. NORAD can confirm this, and so can Denmark and the other NATO nations. Donald Trump's rhetoric is just bullshit. Now, the United Nations could call Article 4, and then there'd be a General Assembly. If Donald Trump keeps, escalating his rhetoric, they can invoke Article 5. Is that any way to, like, even negotiating? Is that any way to negotiate? We can do it the hard way or we can do it the easy way. He doesn't even know how to negotiate. Greenland or Denmark, has always said, yeah, we can have, you know, joint security in Greenland. You already have a base. You already have a military base in Greenland. something like 200 personnel. So when he's talking about security, he's full of shit. We know it's about the minerals. That's why he talks economic security. France now is deploying military personnel to Greenland. Canada has military personnel there already. 6 or 7 NATO countries are putting military in that region with land, air, and sea. Donald Trump wants security of Greenland. Well, NATO's providing it. So we can, he can stop that argument. We need it for national security. Well, NATO's taking care of that. How the new prime minister is working out, in my opinion, I think Mark Carney's doing a terrific job. This man, he's articulate. He's smart. He answers questions without any rhetoric. He's right to the point, so it's clear and understandable. He is doing what other prime ministers should have done in the past, even Trudeau, is diversifying our trade around the world. Not just keeping our eggs in one basket and relying on the United States for trade. I mean, the other day again, Donald Trump, here he is in Michigan. We don't need Canada for anything. We don't need Canada's lumber. We don't need Canada's oil. We don't need Canada's cars. We don't need this. We don't need that. Oh, the Canada United States Mexico agreement is irrelevant. I mean, does he not understand how intertwined our economies are, and not just with the United States and Canada, but with Mexico as well? I mean, we're so intertwined economically that you can't even find the end of the string. And all his bluster and his bullshit. I mean, this is the trade agreement that Trump put together back in 2019, calling Canada nasty. Canada should be the 51st state. And you wonder why Canadians are boycotting the United States, not just with tourism, removing American alcohol off the shelves. More and more Canadians are opting out of not going to the United States. Canadian Airlines canceling destinations to the United States. Even people from around the world, are choosing to go to other destinations than the United States. Your tourism in the United States is devastated. You have border states, border cities in the United States begging Canadians to come over the border and shop and stay and visit. And the majority of us are saying no. But as it comes to the Prime Minister of Canada, you know, he's doing the task, he's doing the job that we're asking him to do. Canada is opening up free trade right across every single province, not just diversifying trade around the world. It's so like it's so important to keep these trade negotiations open. But you can't have somebody on the other side of the table saying, "Well, the Canada, United States, Mexico agreement is just irrelevant now." It's very irrelevant. It's just one of his tactics he likes to use during trade negotiations. Wants Canada to bend at the knee, drop our elbows. Yeah, they might have concerns about what's in the trade agreement that Donald Trump signed back in 2019, calling it the best deal ever. Maybe wants more, access to our dairy. I don't think Canada has a problem, allowing a little more access to the dairy market here in Canada, right? I don't know. So, okay, let's circle back to Alberta. In my opinion, what's going on with them wanting to separate. Well, because you get groups of people, you know, um, who are not, happy with, government policy, federal government policy, like their premier, Danielle Smith. When Trudeau was in power, when Trudeau was the prime minister, she was up one side, down the other side of him. Like I say, with the premier, Danielle Smith, she plays both sides, like I said earlier. One day she's really happy with the government, the next day she's really upset with the government, she takes it to the people, and these separatists, you know, then they try to grow louder and stronger, "Well, we need to separate." So, I just think it's I don't know, I just think it's really stupid. First of all, the people of Alberta, I mean, they're Canadian just like me. Then you have the Indigenous people, and the Indigenous people ac are across the entire country of Canada. Doesn't matter what province you live in or territory. It's just it's separatist is what it is. And the same thing with Quebec when they had their referendum. So it the to for them wanting to separate, yeah, it comes down to the federal government. Well, I'll go by saying that, should all political parties work together for a better country? I mean, absolutely. To understand the political landscape scape here in Canada, for one, we don't vote for a prime minister. Now, what happens is the party, say, the liberals or the conservatives, um, the one that the party that wins 172 seats, um, then becomes the majority government. If you fall under that, it's a minority government. So getting back to your question about how should parties work together for a better countries. So yes, and foremost right now, it's a minority government. It's very important that all parties get on board and work together for the prosperity of the country and for the prosperity of the people, and to do what is required to make living much more easier than what it is today. Whether it's a majority, even at a majority government, it's still important to take into account of the other parties. Whether it's the conservative, the NDP, the Green Party, the independents, to put together a framework that can satisfy all parties and satisfy the people. We already had conservative members cross the floor and become liberals. Where a couple, the Liberal Party, is only a couple seats short of a majority government. Yeah, no, see, that's not how that works. See what happens. So taking the power out of voting out of the hands of the people, that's not what's happening, and not voting for a prime minister. That's not how it happens, right? So a member of a party. So you have to have so many members of a party to even have a party, right? So when we go to the polls, we're voting for a member of the party to have a seat in the House of Commons. The party elects a leader of that party. So when Canadians go to vote, we vote for a member of that party to have a seat in the House of Commons. That party with the most seats, then that leader of that party becomes prime minister. That's how that works. Right? So how about the other way? What is the other way, that we vote for a prime minister like you vote for a president? No. No, our entire political system doesn't work that way, and it wouldn't work that way. It's always been the way it is for as long as I could remember, right? Now, liberals, no, it was the other way around. It was conservatives becoming liberals. So at any given time, what doesn't matter what party you are with and what party are you with in the House of Commons. You can cross the floor, and as did a couple of conservatives, did cross the floor and join the Liberal Party. It's not the first time this has happened in the political landscape, here in Canada. It's even when people don't, even after a while, people who are a member of a party, stop believing in the views of that party. And so they say to themselves, you know what? I'm not aligned with my party any longer. I want to change, and then they go and join the other party. But should it be a one party rule? Well, see, when we're talking about a minority government or a majority government, so for instance, if the Liberals did get a majority government, they wouldn't have to, rely on other parties' vote. They could pass legislation. They could, pass a bill, pass legislation, right? And I mean, that's got its upsides and downsides too. And same with having a minority government right now, where the Liberal government has to rely on another party or parties in order to pass a bill. Well, if it was now, like I said, if it was a majority Liberal government, then we wouldn't need conservative vote. We wouldn't need an NDP vote. We wouldn't need a Green Party vote. We wouldn't need the Quebec Bloc for a vote, right? But right now, because we don't have a majority government, we need the support of other parties. So that means we would have to have support, one vote from a conservative, or a vote from the NDP, or a vote from the Green Party, or a vote from the Quebec Bloc in order to pass a bill. And it has to be voted on. You know, like a minority government. So if other parties, so what happens if they vote on legislation, and the Liberals doesn't get enough votes, and then what happens is they will vote on a non-confidence vote, and that could send us into an election. And right now, we don't want an election. We just had an election in the springtime of 2025. Not only did we have a federal election, we had a provincial election. So having a minority government, there's that risk of having another federal election sooner than 4 years. And believe me, we don't want that right now. So that's why it's so important. So when policies are presented, by the Liberal government, they're walking a thin line. And to get other parties on board to vote on a bill. And Canadians, as voters and stuff like that, we've made it clear, that we want cooperation between all parties. We don't want to go into another election. Okay, so you want me to go deeper on the last election breakdown? Okay, so Prime Minister Trudeau stepped down. So we needed to hold an election. Basically, right? That's what we needed to do. Now, hopefully, we don't have to have an election this year, and that we can hold off an election, because, the Prime Minister, it's a 4-year term. Here in Canada, the Prime Minister can run for Prime Minister as many times as he wants. Not like the United States, where you can only run for president twice. We've had prime ministers, Chrétien. We've had even Pierre Trudeau, Justin Trudeau's father, back in throughout the 60s and 70s. Ran eight. So they had 12 years as prime minister. So yeah, basically that's last year. That's why we had a federal election, is because Justin Trudeau stepped down. So we needed to hold an election. So, but anyways, yeah, just I don't know, the political spectrum is complicated at sometimes, and other times we get through things. And and of course with Alberta, Alberta isn't going anywhere. It's always going to be a province of Canada. um they couldn't even get enough votes to separate. They're one of the smallest provinces in Canada. Quebec is even larger than Alberta, and their referendum didn't pass. So I'm not concerned. I'm not concerned about Alberta. Um, it'll be here. It'll be a province, and it always will be. So, but thank you for taking the time out here, and thank you for engaging with me, um, Redneck Rambler. Thank you for coming back on the show and listening in, and to everybody else who had come on the show and come on and listen to the North Affair podcast. And just like at the beginning of the show, you asked me if this was the host that had the word trucker in it, and yes, it was. It was called the Truckers Podcast. But this title of the show now is called North Affair. One because Canada is the true North, strong and free, and fair is the baseline. And it's always conversations without barriers. So don't let that confuse you. Join me again. Love to have you out here. Thank you for engaging with me. I hope I did, had some clarity for you when it comes to somewhat of the political landscape here in Canada. I hope that was helpful to you and anybody else listening. I try to get out here as much as I possibly can. January is I've been just pumping out some shows in the afternoon. Yeah, that's funny. Have I seen a Sasquatch up your way? No, Donald Trump hasn't been here recently. He was only back here last summer, so no other sightings of a Sasquatch except for that one. But thanks for asking. And yeah, take care. Enjoy the rest of your day. Enjoy the rest of your week. And holy shit, tomorrow's Friday already. Wow, time flies. Enjoy your weekend when you get to it. Potentially, I'll be out here tomorrow again. Anyways, I'll probably take a break over Saturday and Sunday, and get some shows up for the upcoming week. And again, thank you everyone coming out here and listening to the North Affair podcast. Enjoy the rest of your day, your week, and hopefully we get together again. Thank you.